Parliament. Yeah, I was a congressional intern for a summer, which made this weather feel positively cool, actually. And then to just sort of round out my whole parliamentary experience, and this is a Guelph shout out, after I graduated from university, I was really fortunate to be a parliamentary intern. And so Alf Hales, 50 years ago, was the Member of Parliament for Guelph. And he was lamenting how much work it is for an MP to have to do all this work and research and work in committees and bills and all this stuff. And at the dinner table, his wife said, well, why don't you get some volunteers or something? So the parliamentary internship program was born because of Alf Hales from Guelph. And if you ever walk behind the river run, there's the Alf Hales Promenade, so check that out. But what the program does, it takes 10 young Canadians from all across Canada, and you get to work 5 months for a government MP and 5 months for an opposition MP. So you have to be willing to see multiple sides of an argument. You have to remain nonpartisan. And you get to travel to other parliamentary democracies. So again, it was really about understanding our systems and how they're supposed to work and how policy gets made. And in Washington, there was a sign actually, and it said, people who like sausage and respect laws should not watch either one being made. And I thought, well, if you like sausage, maybe you should get in the kitchen and then at least you know what's in the sausage. So all of this stuff was part of my background. And then I started to look at the system. So I really believe that the people who run for elected office, the people who serve in a bureaucracy, they really do have the best interests of their country or their community at heart. They really are going to work every day trying to find the best policy they can, but they don't always get it right. And that's why it's so important to engage people between elections, people or organizations. So after the internship program, I worked as a lobbyist and helped a number of organizations, private and not-for-profit, to make legislative change. Because democracy is not only at the moment we cast our vote, and in fact, it is more important between those elections, and it's even more important the earlier on in the process that you can be. So all of that baggage has increasingly made me concerned about the erosion of trust in our institutions. So whether you look at the Edelman Trust Barometer, that 50% of people think the system is failing them, or you look at new data that shows that 50% of people trust their elected officials, we need to be very concerned about that, because when there's a lack of trust, there's a huge cost. We need to engage more, communicate more, redo. We need to put up barriers. We need to have all kinds of backup plans. So this is the only system we've got. So we need to work together to be improving it. The other thing that's kind of been niggling me at me for the last couple of years is I did a project with the Canadian Index of Wellbeing. So they do a big report, and part of well-being is democratic engagement. So do you know that how long do you think it would take if we continued towards gender equity in Parliament at the current rate we're going? So if we continue to improve women in Parliament at the rate we're going, how long do you think it will take for us to achieve gender equity in Parliament?
15 years. Never happened.
I wish. We have 15.
125.
Not 125. 80 years. 80 years. So when the 2018 municipal election was coming up, I had that aha moment that if not now, when, and if not me, who? If women aren't willing to throw their hat in the ring at any level of government, this is not going to improve. So it was a good confluence of events. I have a supportive spouse. I had lots of friends who helped. And we thought, you know what? That whole junior high thing of, well, why couldn't I do this, kicked in. And I thought, if I don't try it now, I will always regret it. I'll always wonder, what if I'd run? And there's a whole bunch of really important things happening in our community. We're going to develop one of the last green fields, right? We're concerned about climate change and plastics and the day-to-day stuff that's an irritant to you, traffic and all of those things. So I thought, somebody's going to be at the table. I'll give it a shot. So I leapt, I ran, I walked, I knocked on doors with friends and family, and no one gets that horseshoe alone. And on October 22nd, 4,133 people put an X next to my name. So that is a very humbling moment, because it means all of those people said, you work for me now. And not just them, but all of the others. And so here's some things that I've learned now on the other side of the horseshoe. Because I take that vote of confidence in with me every time we go to council or any of the meetings. So one of the things that I have learned is it is an extremely steep learning curve, right? So every week it's like learning a new language. This week it's planning, next week it's geography, next week it's, finance. And all of that, people are very willing to help you learn, council colleagues and staff. I also learned that the input of people is really critical, right? We need feedback from people. We need people to come to council and to help us get it right. And at the same time, those people, that their job is to advocate, and our job is to try and balance it out. Because if we say yes to you today, what are we saying no to next week? So that's been a real challenge. That's been a real learning curve around what is staff's role, what's our role, what's the public's role. And I'm a real believer in trying to build that trust by communicating with people, by inviting them to council. And one of the things I've loved the most is talking to school groups. So I love to point out that you can't go to Queen's Park or the House of Commons and speak directly to the elected members, right? But you could come to council. You, as a kid in grade 5, you could come and tell us what you think. And that we're not set up like a House of Commons or a Queen's Park where it's an opposition, where the physical setup is about opposing something. We're set up in a horseshoe so that we have greater collaboration. So I've really enjoyed talking to young people to see how they can start to engage. So what I'd like to challenge you to do, arguably, we live in one of the best cities in the best country in the world by many objective measures. And we need to treasure our democracy, which feels fragile right now. There is a lot of polarization of views, and whether it's in social media or just in the news, we need to be trying to see how we can work together to move through some of these greatest challenges. We need to be building trust in our organizations, and we need to be looking for more diversity in our electoral system. So what I challenge you to do today is I want to plant a seed. If someone here is sitting there thinking, hey, you know what? I could run. Or you know someone that you think should run. You need to start to, I see people tapping one another. Keep doing that. Think about who would be a great person in that horseshoe? Who would add to the diversity of that, of our conversation? Guelph has 1 in 5 people who were born in another country. And we have never had a person of color sit in the horseshoe. So we need to be reaching out to people. If people aren't comfortable in meetings or in an electoral process, we need to be inviting them in. Guelph's voter turnout in our last municipal election was 35.6%. So I'm going to ask you to vote. I think this is a voting crowd, but I'm going to ask you to vote. I'm going to ask you to stay engaged. The earlier, the better. The moment to really engage is at the creation of the master plans, because once you see the sign go up in your community, it's late in the game, and it's very, very hard to ramp up and make changes. So engage early. Encourage others to participate between elections. Encourage them to run, and if they do run, you got to support them. And that means, volunteer on their campaign, make a donation, put up a sign. You have no idea what an encouraging email at 11 o'clock at night can do to somebody's morale when they're in the thick of it. Because all of the people who are running really believe in the well-being of their community. Regardless of their perspective, they're really all there for the right reasons. And so my invitation for you is to continue to engage in democracy as we move through really challenging times, exciting times in what is an extraordinary city. So thanks very much for your time.